Ladies and gentlemen, this is Brad Thurston doing investigative journalism for thefreedomreport.com. It is month 4 of quarantine and our constitutional rights have never been more under assault. I've been locked inside this bedroom for 21 minutes while my wife is on a Zoom call. I have no contact with the outside world, no way to get chicken tenders, nor rant about my favorite children's card game, Yu-Gi-Oh! Folks, I am not messing around. We have to return to tradition, we have to get hype, and we have to talk about a deck that was popular for 2 weeks 6 years ago. Good afternoon, Jank enthusiasts. I'm MBT, and this is 10-minute testing. Okay, so real MBT heads know, by virtue of my extremely good and not clickbait ban list video, that I was an advocate of about 15 separate unhits for this most recent format. Konami went above and beyond my expectations, however, as even I was not so foolish as to recommend the Gishki cards come off the list. In my mind, they represented an undefeatable hand loop FTK, but it was the stuff of legends, only spoken about in hushed tones and among Turbo Tuesday viewers. May they rest in peace. Well, Goostkraken came off, so let's see if these Gishki Gunguses are all they're cracked up to be. Presenting, Gishki. But first, if you're on the fence about subscribing, let me sweeten the pot for you. Click that little button below the video and I'll unband Mind August next. So here's the list, and yes, of course it's a Halka-Fibrax combo. Sheesh, it's like you all forgot Herald of the Arclight has text on it. As always, I'll give you a background about the archetype, a little bit of a discussion about what I hope the deck can do, and of course, the card by card. But first, this video is sponsored by Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro Deck. Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro Deck is an online strategy site for our mutual favorite card game. It's got a deck builder, card database, and a wealth of strategy articles. It's also where I post the Quarantine Series deck breakdowns, so give it a look at www.ygoprodeck.com. With that, let's get down to Gishki. The Gishki are a series of monsters that, according to the ancient text of Yu-Gi-Oh!fandom.wiki.com / wield the same power as that of the ice barriers, though they use the Aqua Mirror Medallion to turn themselves into wicked monsters. I'd just like to take this opportunity to remind all of you upset at the Dream Mirror lore that it could always be worse. This is a ritual archetype, which is extremely frightening. Konami's used the fact that ritual monsters are inherently bad to print some of the most obscene generic support any summoning type has ever received. So if any of them are ever playable in any capacity, we're gonna have a Necroz of a problem. This archetype ticks all the red flags. They have searchers for their spell and monsters, their spell recycles their rituals in the grave, and worst of all, Goostkraken is one of the greatest hand loop tools ever conceived. We're going to be playing these cards in a shell so efficient you'd think Halka-Fibrax was ritual support and not a mechanism for Reactor to put up 8 negates. By going from Halk through Deskbot 001, we can synchro the tokens from Auroradon into Heralds, then get them into the graveyard to search Goostkraken and its malicious ilk. After that, we can go into Coltwing and do it all over again, ripping between 3 and 5 cards from our opponent's hand with frightening consistency. After the loop has been completed, our options are severely limited. It turns out there's exactly one powerful rank 6 monster, and she's a little more home in Burning Abyss than in here. As a result, we'll aim to end on, and I'm not joking here, Photon Strike Bouncer. It's a negate! Stop laughing! With any luck, if we win the die roll, we should be able to strip our opponent's hand, and if we lose it, we can just pretend we're playing a bad Eldritch deck and ring a few negates from Auroradon's supple Comboian frame. So with that, let's get into the card by card. Firstly, the Halk starters, 3002 and 2001. This is the ideal start to your combo as it gets 2 recurrent machines. Next is 3 Deep Sea Diva, 3 Nep, and a Lapis. Lapis is there so our Nept Abyss makes Halk itself. This setup has a lower ceiling, but can search Hand Trap Disruption in Deep Sea Minstrel using the 3 copies of Goons we have in deck. Penultimately, the searchable Gishki searchers, 3 Shadow and 1 Vision, and finally 3 Ash Blossom and a Coltwing. Just don't draw it. For ritual monsters, we're on 3 Gusty and 3 Benten for recurrent ritual fodder, and for spells we're on 3 Preprites, 3 Aqua Mirror, and 2 of the situationally powerful Deep Sea Aria. In the extra, we're on Chathuga, 3 Herald, 2 Ptolemy, Bouncer, Emerald, Abyss, Dugaris, Access Code, Unicorn, Dawn, Phoenix, and Hawk. So with that, let's jump into the games. Our first match is up against Psyframe. I figured the only way to garner sympathy for myself playing a hand loop deck was to play against something even more degenerate. Luckily, our opponent's not going to shotgun the Cyframe Gear Gamma because of greed. They want to resolve it with the circuit on field. Fool. We're going to go from Halka Fibrax into a 0/0/1 to make a Mecha Phantom Beast Auroradon. We'll activate its effect to summon 3 tokens to our side of the field. Because 2 or more machines were summoned to our side of the field at the same time, we can summon back every copy of 0/0/1 from our graveyard, and then proceed to Synchro Summon. We'll make a Herald and a Cthugga before making an Emerald and drawing a card via Cthugga's effect. We draw a copy of, Minstrel! Let's take that Cyframe Gear Gamma before they have a change of heart. We'll go for this copy of Emerald afterwards, shuffling back 3 cards into our deck and drawing an Ash. We'll trigger the effect of Herald for a Gust Kraken, and we are getting there. Next, we're going to summon a copy of Coltwing from deck. We'll activate Coltwing's effect to summon 2 tokens, and then from graveyard once again, we'll summon 0/0/1 a couple of times. From here, we're going to Synchro Summon 2 copies of Herald of the Arclight. That's all 3 of them, for those of you keeping a tally at home, before we go into Dugaris and summon back the Herald that was already in the graveyard. We'll trigger both Heralds in order to add to our hand a copy of Benten and a copy of Aqua Mirror. Next, we'll go into an Abyss Dweller and fire off the first Aqua Mirror. That's going to summon a Gust Kraken. We'll look at 2 cards from our opponent's hand while triggering the Benten and pick one of them to put back in the deck. I figure probably Feel Zone is the better of those 2. We'll go for a Shadow next and then activate Abyss Dweller so we can trigger the effect of Herald to get another copy of Gust Kraken. We'll activate Aqua Mirror to bring out the Gust Kraken, triggering the Gust Kraken and the effect of Benten. We'll activate Benten's effect, getting Benten and Gust Kraken's, putting back probably the duality before our opponent concedes. So that's how most of your games are going to play out. But what happens when your opponent aims to blind second and plays the cards to make up for it? Such is the case in our second match versus Mech Knight Tenyi. Let's see how it goes. We lead with a copy of 0/0/3. Unfortunately, we've drawn a 0/0/1, but we still should be able to summon it because Halka Fibrax can summon from hand. Now, the consistency of your Gust Kraken setups is largely contingent on how many copies of ritual monsters or ritual spells you open. You can see we've only opened 1 copy of Vision, so we aren't going to be able to extend very far. Likely, we're only going to be able to loop probably 2 or 3 cards. We'll go for a copy of Emerald, and unfortunately, we draw one of the 0/0/3s remaining in deck, followed by a second copy of 0/0/3 from deck. Oh well, at least it wasn't a Coltwing. We'll activate Coltwing's effect alongside Herald of the Arclight so we can get a mirror to hand. We'll summon 2 tokens to our side of the field, summoning the 0/0/1s back in sequence afterwards, and synchro summoning 2 copies of Herald of the Arclight. Just like last time, we're going to overlay those 2 for a copy of Dugaris, then activate Dugaris' effect so that we can summon back the 3rd copy of Herald. That's going to trigger both copies of Herald, and from here we're going to add a Benten, of course, because we don't have one yet, and another copy of Aqua Mirror. We'll activate Abyss Dweller's effect, activating the last effect of Herald to get a copy of Gust Kraken. We'll activate the effect of Vision and start summoning. We'll use Aqua Mirror to get a copy of Gust Kraken and trigger Benten's effect as well, so we can add a Benten to hand for future summons. We'll go ahead and take, the red one, I suppose, before activating Aqua Mirror again and going into Gust Kraken. Benten will trigger once again, as will Gust Kraken. We see one of the 2 World Legacy memories, so we shuffle it back into the deck before going into Bouncer and passing. We're going to activate Abyss Dweller as early as possible. Now, our opponent draws a copy of Sithana for a turn. They'll go into a Monk of the Tenyi and then activate the effect of Adhara, summoning it from hand, before firing off a copy of Memory. They'll go into Purple Nightfall and activate its effect. This is a pretty bad bouncer target. I'm hoping they go for blue, not reading my cards, but they go for indigo. Afterwards, they're going to go into a copy of Morningstar, bringing back the indigo, and unfortunately for us, we don't get a main phase 1 because we activated Dugaris' effect. We'll proceed directly to the battle phase, and because the only thing we can walk over is the Adhara, we'll proceed to main phase 2 and go for Deep Sea Aria. We'll activate Diva's effect, summoning from deck copy of Nept Abyss. Because we have 2 goons in hand, we can't activate it, but it's still fine fodder for the Halka Fibrax we put back. We'll go into a copy of Access Code Talker with a 3-mat attached, and start cleaning our opponent's board. They have 1 card in hand, and this purple coming back with which to resolve the board state, and I don't think they'll be able to. We'll let the purple resolve for a red. They'll normal summon a copy of Girsu. We'll activate Bouncer, and they'll activate the second effect of Girsu, which hilariously, because both these monsters are machines, triggers my copies of 0/0/1 in the graveyard. They'll concede in response to that. So it's time for game 3, and you know what that means, a best of 3 versus meta. Our opponent's playing Dragon Link, and unfortunately, while we're going first and have opened Broken, our deck has a devastating weakness you're about to see in action. We're going to lead with a copy of 0/0/3, summoning for the 3rd game in a row, a 0/0/1 from our deck. Next, we'll make Halka Fibrax and activate its effect to get a 0/0/1 from deck, before making an Auroradon, summoning 3 tokens to our side of the field, and the 0/0/1s from the graveyard. Afterwards, we can make this copy of Herald of the Arclight and lock our opponent out of hand traps for the remainder of the turn, but before that happens, they Nibiru. Oh. I guess we lose. Yuck. So it's time for game 2, and while our opponent has opened a couple of hand traps, we've opened a couple of tools of our own. Potentially, we can make this work. We're going to lead with a copy of 0/0/3. Our opponent allows it to resolve. We get a 0/0/1 from deck and make a Halka Fibrax. At this point, our opponent will Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, but by sending this shadow to the graveyard, we can get a copy of Aqua Mirror. We'll activate Aqua Mirror to go into a Gust Kraken, activate its effect, and Benten's effect in sequence, to which our opponent chains a copy of Cyframe Gear Gamma. That negates the Benten, but we do get to resolve the Gust Kraken and put this Tracer back. We've left them with 2 cards they can't activate. We should win as long as it don't draw. Exactly quick launch. Exactly quick launch. Oh my god. And from that single card, the remainder of their unplayable hand is unlocked. From this position, I think we actually lose. They're going to go from Divine Lance into Phalanx, going into a Link Cross, summoning 2 tokens to their side of the field, and here comes the combo, ladies and gentlemen. Martial Metal Marcher, bringing back the Phalanx to enable further extension. Halqifibrax summoning from deck a copy of Red Rose Dragon. They make a Herald. They trigger Red Rose. They get White Rose. They have the zones available for Striker plus LP. They'll summon from deck a copy of Brotar. Oh my god, I can't believe it's ending like this. Pisty bringing back a copy of Striker from Graveyard. Chaos Space able to cycle. Boot Sector Launch activated to summon a Tracer. Striker Dragon popping this copy of Pisty so they can add back a copy of Tracer to hand. Activating and resolving Seyfert for Chaos Dragons. All off a top deck I couldn't control. They'll go to battle phase, walk over August Kraken, deal 3,000, and win the set. So, we're back with the deck, and okay, Tier 0 Super Threat, it is not. Let's do the pros and cons. First, the pros. 1, it does hand loop. Every individual hand capable of making Halqifibrax is similarly capable of removing between 3 and 5 cards from the opponent's grip, which is probably good enough to win. 2, I think we can all understand by now that targeted hand looping and random hand looping are worlds apart, and Gust Kraken is kind of targeted. Seeing 2 is better than seeing 0. And 3, Herald of the Arclight is such an unbelievably busted card, and I am so happy it has a home outside of being an extra negate for Bylon cube setups. And the cons. 1, the deck's got a pretty severe and pretty telegraphed choke point. Both the card that summons the card that makes Halqifibrax, and the Auroradon. Without access to Halq or Dawn, we're playing the least flexible ritual deck in the universe. 2, water hand looping isn't anything new. There's not really a reason to play this build, which folds to a single hand trap, over a Mermail Molin Glacia one, where they can play through almost anything. And 3, the way cards are printed these days, a single card can easily be full combo, and we can never control what's on top of our opponent's deck. Add to that the miserable rank 6 pool, and unless they draw an out that Bouncer specifically beats, you're going to be out of luck. All in all, it's a cool deck that can often hand loop if you win the die roll and your opponent doesn't have any hand traps. But it's not good. So that's that. As always, thanks to my patrons, Meatmoto27, Dominic Ernst, Hakuo, Alex Perea, Candyman, Koibo275, Crispy, Dimsum05, Innercrest, King Magic Ruler, Lavender Lemonade, Meteor Mirage, Mike Carlotti, Rocky Hernandez, Rose Lapine, Seeker, Space Dandy 1993, Stevie Blunder, Tyler Slacks, Tyrese Biggums IV, Adam Trevino, Adrian Bra, Amita Elefandi, Algis Marcin Kavicius, Andrew Rethi, Andrew Benson, Andrew Horseman Linderman, Angry Bread, Apex Systems, Billy Williams, Blake Root, Candide, Chad Bortz, Chess Prime, Chibi Gohan, Jorps Away, CJ Alex, Cobbin, Connor Kid, Dan the Man Hoban, Darcy Taves, Devin Dees, Dylan Conley, Donnie Filler, Pedistrin, Emperor Stove, Ernesto Ibarra, Fighting Fangwong, FUTR, Gamer Games, Gavin Charlikowski, Isaac Jackson, Jalen Ya, Jared Lorman, Jason Leonard, Jeff Leonard, Jose Luis Cortez, Kaiba Shill, Corey Hess, Kurakaze, Lawrence, Lucas Geartis, Lucky Number 5, Lucas Arito Hansen, Meadow Edits, Mezzo Emrys, Michael Oskavar, Kamiyuno Arashi, Nick Extreme 99, Nick Dolores, Pro FB2, Pro Yugi Dad, Samsoon, Sean Dial, Second Standards Objective, Swag Kage, Yuri's Best, Zach Janchusky, Zach McKee, Bled, Dive Missile, Picnic Blasted, This Machine 237, TJ Steakhouse, and Yukie. If you like what you see, please consider subscribing. And if you want to be part of the process, consider following me on Twitch as well. See you next time.